Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Imperial Scholars Podcast. My name is Mitz, and I will be acting as your connoisseur of all the crazy, wacky stuff of Warhammer fantasy lore, here to guide you and teach you for newcomers, and also for the fans who know this stuff so that they can kind of relive it and, have a grand old time listening. And along with me is who I've invited to be my co-host, Mr. Cabs. If you would kindly introduce yourself, sir.
Yes, I am Mr. Cabs. I know nothing about Warhammer Sigmar universe or anything to do with said hammer. So this will be a treat. I'm ready to learn. I'm that friend that's strapped to the chair while Mr. Mitch explains everything to me.
I feel like you have a basic idea, though, of what you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, I know my fantasy stuff, right? We know some Lord of the Rings, some Dungeons and Dragons, that ordeal.
Well, I've taught you, like, the basics of, like, the basic races is what I mean, right? Like, you know about the Empire and, like, they exist. But,
Yeah,
like,
I mean, obviously, I know about the elves, the goblins. There's the lizard guys, the
yeah,
scaly boys,
we have
stuff like that.
Our Tolkien, like, coin characters or species, right?
Yeah, right. And I'm sure there's some flavorable species in there as well.
Exactly, yeah. So, but that is such a broad stroke, and because I'm glad we brought this up, because I did want to point this out, because I'm trying to create this as something that is for people who know nothing about it and want to get into it and want to know the lore, even if it's kind of secondhand lore, because oh my god, there's so many books for just one subject, and I'm gonna be honest, if I read every book, like, we'd be coming out with one podcast a year. It is just it is insanity, dude.
So these are just like thick ass books, is what you're getting at.
Oh my god, dude. Like, I have some collections of the, like, multiple books that, like, cover, like, one aspect, and I swear to god, it's a small Bible.
Okay.
Like, the
And
history
that's
of
just
the
like
elves.
one subject.
Hmm? Yeah,
That's
pretty
just
much.
one subject.
It's like
Yeah.
one
Okay.
crisis that we're covering. Yeah, exactly. So
That's
I
kind of wild.
so I am going to start us off, actually, to introduce it. I'm going to start us off with the actual origins of the world where all of this insanity takes place.
Oh, I'm excited.
Yeah,
You got That's a good starting point.
it's I'm literally starting from, like, the Big Bang and moving our way forward, right? You don't get much more broad than that, and it's insanity, because we're basically covering every theory of how the world came into being, from, like, in like religious text to uh like the theory of aliens.
What? There's aliens in this world?
Yes, so we in, like, Scientology, like, there's so much to cover, and I have these patch notes to help us cover this. So I'm gonna get us started.
All
So,
right.
for all of anyone who doesn't know, Warhammer Fantasy is basically, what if you took all of the species of Tolkien and mushed it all into one ball, and these species were just constantly trying to kill each other. It's extremely grimdark, and I love it. It makes for a great tabletop, and for some great stories. I am a Lizardman fan, but we will get around to them. Actually, that's great, because we'll be getting to them pretty quickly here, the Lizardmen. So,
Ooh.
when the world first came into being, basically, we're going to literally start off with aliens.
Okay.
We are literally starting off with aliens. These are referred to as the Old Ones. And they were literally giant floating space toads in pyramid spaceships.
What?
This is real. Stick with me. We're just getting started. So they literally would go from world to world, creating portals in which they could hop through grand amounts of space. And eventually they came to the old world. And at this point in time, it was completely frozen over. It was in a state of ice age. So there was only a few species that actually inhabited the planet. And they weren't of the old ones' making or creation. But through their insane power of science and whatever other crazy stuff that they had, their technology, they actually moved the sun's axis closer to the sun.
Okay. So they
Yeah.
just like moved the giant ass sun with toad powers.
These toads literally moved a planet and were just skirted a little ways towards the sun so we can melt these ice caps and make this hospitable.
But you said there was like other species already on this planet, right?
There were dragons, basically dinosaurs, and like mammoths,
Okay.
and a strange species called dragon ogres.
And do these guys just get like evaporated as soon as these like giant space toads just take their world and just be like, oh look, giant flaming ball in front of you?
Well, what they basically do is they melt the world to become hospitable to them, and then they come down in their space pyramids and land, and immediately, yeah, they just start colonizing the planet. However, needless to say, not every species was like super optimistic to being run by space toads.
So
Uh,
they didn't die from like the warmth, like like the new climate did not kill the old species.
no, for some weird reason, they did fine. They adapted to the melting of the ice caps, and in some of them
Uh,
actually, it's weird because I'll get to that. Like I don't know all the details there, but somehow they managed to live through that. But most of the animals actually did do fine with like the old ones coming. They were like just animals that could be tamed, right? Like
I
dogs and
see.
stuff. But anything that was sentinel was basically like, hey, how about you serve under us? And they were like, how about no? And they were like, all right, well, the alternative is genocide. So so one of these creatures was or species was the dragon ogres, which is basically like how do I describe a dragon ogre?
Yeah,
I mean,
dude, you have to describe that.
it,
That
it
that sounds scary.
it sounds exactly what it sounds like, but it's something I can't describe because it's basically a centaur with
All
like,
right.
but like the legs aren't a horse; it's a dragon's,
What?
and the humanoid half is just this like giant, muscle-bound, greasy-looking monster of a man with giant tusks.
Dude, I gotta search out what these things look like. What'd you call them?
Dragon ogres.
Dragon ogres. All right, hold up.
Yeah, they're pretty nutty. They're still a
What?
model actually.
Yo, what is this
Oh,
thing?
yeah, dude, dragon ogres are great.
Dude, this looks like someone like Frankenstein's like creation or something. You just took like different fantasy models and like merged this into one giant beast.
I know it's so much. It's one of my favorite things. It's probably one of the most original designs that came out of Warhammer Fantasy originally. That wasn't just like because that's I don't think that's based off of anything in Tolkien. To the best of
Yeah,
my
no,
knowledge.
definitely not.
Yeah.
Definitely not, dude. Tolkien did not come up with this, that's for sure.
Yeah, I don't think so. So I'm gonna give credit to Games Workshop this time around, but this might be the first. It might be the only time.
So these like abominations are like getting all pissed off at the big toads.
Yeah, they were like, "Hey, how about you stop killing us, please?" And they were like, "No, Lamau." And the big toad guys literally just the first thing they did was create an army of lizard dudes, like these giant humanoid-looking, muscle-bound, just balls of scale and teeth and fury to just go and just start killing these guys without discrimination.
And that's the faction that you play as.
Yeah, I do love those guys, admittedly.
Okay,
Although,
okay, so you're like the toads bitches then.
pretty much, these toad guys, they're pretty cold-blooded. I mean, the dragon ogres, to be fair, they're not great dudes. I don't know if they were originally hostile, to be honest, because they end up basically creating a pact with the devil to save themselves from these guys.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so there's a thing for you know about this, but for those who don't, called the Realm of Chaos. And the Realm of
I
Chaos
am
is
familiar.
you are familiar, yeah. The Realm of Chaos is basically the immaterial. It is where time and space do not exist. It is eternity and madness made manifest for the most part. And there are gods that reside here and actually try to fight each other for power. So,
Yeah, and that's the Chaos Gods, right?
exactly. So these guys, so the dragon ogres actually made a pact with the chaos gods in retaliation to, rather than subjugating to. So they basically became slaves to another group. They they would rather become slaves to the devil than to these frogmen.
So they were like so petty that they're just like, you know what? No, man, I'd rather become slaves to those dudes, and they like just point to the chaos realm, and it's just like burning hell and like screams and stuff.
Yeah, pretty much, because they probably already were real pieces of work and just decided, like, you know what? I'm just gonna, like, oh, I already love murdering and destroying everything in sight. I'll just go to the gods that will let me keep doing that rather than toad men.
I do have one question. Where did these Toad guides come from?
No
Like
one
who
really
made the
knows.
Toad? No one knows. Like Games Workshop is just like, all right, space toads.
They will always be known as just the mysterious old ones. They just, like, traveled to planets and created giant portals to jump between planets through. And for some reason, they decided this was the world that they would migrate to and just colonize and, yeah, whatever the word is to make the world more hospitable to them.
And they're not gods of any sort.
They might as well be. They are
Oh,
the
okay.
lizard men's gods, basically.
Okay, okay.
Yeah,
So
because
like I'm assuming the chaos gods don't like these toads either.
no, they are very not happy because they basically represent the most supreme order, right?
Oh, I see what you mean.
Because it is this thing of they did create the lizard men and they did create these guys called Saurus warriors who
Who
are
are those dudes?
basically. Sorry, go ahead.
Who are the Saurus warriors?
So those
You
are
just
like the
mentioned them.
bruisers of the group. Those are the actual like army faction, the foot soldiers.
And they're like with the lizard dudes, like they're kind of buddy buddies.
Well, they are the lizard dude. Like they're with the
Oh,
frogmen. Yes.
oh, okay, okay. So they're just the same people. They're just like a certain type of soldier
Yeah,
of the lizard
exactly.
guys. Oh, okay. They're like the
Precisely.
grunts, like
The
the
grunts,
Halo
yeah, the
grunts.
grunt soldiers, exactly.
Okay, okay.
Well, the old ones basically they created different species for specific jobs, actually. So not long after they created the slans, which were other frogs. Uh,
So wait, they made more frog dudes that also live in this world as well.
yes, and they operate as these. They basically operate as the leaders.
Ah, I see. Okay.
Like they are the rulers of the lizardmen race.
Oh, they are. Okay.
Yeah. But they are like beneath the old ones, right? They're the servants of the old ones, but they lead the lizardmen.
I see.
And then not long after, they created the skinks, who were like the minds and the architects of the world. But the skinks were made to be like 4'3", so they weren't the strongest. So they created the Croxagores not long after, who were these giant muscle-bound crocodile men who just acted as subservience to the skinks.
So these are like the two original fashions was these lizard guys and the dragon ogres. And the toad dudes are just like, all right, new race as soon as there's like a new problem or something.
Pretty much, yeah. So they just, yeah, for some reason, I'm not exactly sure why this is, but they eventually create the other species as well of the elves, the dwarfs, and the humans in that order. And they basically each had they were designed to have their own gifts. So it's kind of this thing of
Okay.
like, you know how like every race has a stereotype in Tolkien?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so these guys were designed that the elves would be very attuned to magic and the way of nature and all of this stuff and the balance and of order of the world. And the dwarfs would be stalwart and hardworking and, unbeatable determination and all this stuff. And
Yeah, like the
humans were
typical like
basically, yeah, humans were
fantasy
meant to be the
stuff.
middle ground.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like humans is always like the basic race, and then like yeah, dwarves just keep digging, diggy hole.
Diggy diggy hole, exactly. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. All right,
So
and
so
then the
they
elves are like the magic boys.
Yeah, yeah, and the humans had the They were the all around just like I don't know why they made them though. That's the thing I'm not entirely sure about, but they did create them.
They're like, let's just make some humans in there just for fun.
I think it was probably yeah, it was probably because it was like the source and all these guys were engineered and they needed something that was more malleable. But with that malleability, with them being able to be malleable, other problems came, which I'll get to in a minute. Because
right.
we're getting up to your favorite faction, actually.
Oh, nice. And who's that?
Well, you want to take a wild guess?
Is it the orcs, the
I was about to
boys?
say, when everything is going well, that's when the orcs arrive.
Ah, the boys. Now, are they similar to 40k? Or are they different?
They are almost identical. I mean, the thing is that, like, in fantasy, they don't really have guns, right?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, so they don't really have that. In fact, like, they're probably the worst because they have bow and arrows. That's the best they can make. So one of my favorite things is the orcs in Total War. If you have arrow boys, it literally has as a trait that they have poor accuracy because they just want to fire.
So they just shoot each other?
They just shoot in random directions. They just hold it up and they just release and hope for the best.
Oh, the orcs.
Oh yeah, you gotta love it.
Please
So,
tell me they have like crazy contraptions as well.
oh,
Where they just make random shit.
they have some insane stuff. One of my favorite things that they do, it's a thing that you can get in Total War, is they have this construct of their god that comes to life, and it's literally just a rock golem with a big wooden mask.
Alright.
Like it's a 50-foot tall, just pile of rocks shaped like an orc that just throws pieces of itself as artillery.
So it breaks itself down to
Yep.
kill other things. That's
Yep.
awesome.
And it's that's its entire purpose, and that's it. And it's literally just funded by or just controlled by WOG energy.
Oh, so that is a thing. They have the Wa energy as well.
Oh yeah, the WOG energy is still a major part of like it's basically the orc culture. It's basically the orcs' religion.
See see when we do a full episode on the orcs, that's what I get excited for. So who made the orcs?
Yeah, I was about to say I gotta get back to where we were because I can't keep divulging because I'm like I just brought up the orcs and we've basically done half a podcast on them.
Yeah, no, we could stay on the orcs forever.
Yeah,
Sorry,
exactly.
so keep going, keep telling me about the beginning.
All right. So the orcs. Do you know about orc spawnings, like how they reproduce?
I do know in 40k that they come from like mushrooms.
Yeah, and it's
I don't
the
know.
exact same here.
Okay, so Games Workshop didn't really change much with these guys.
No, they literally sprout out of the ground, and basically all the factions are just like, oh my god, there's a like 8-foot tall green 300-pound muscle brutes trying to eat me, and just kill me and all my loved ones.
Did the toads make these by like accident, or like did they just come? Where did they?
No,
Where did
they
they come
just
from?
kind of popped up.
They just one day the Wa energy just infected a mushroom, and then now there's orcs.
Yep, I'm willing to bet that something happened in the warp and it caused their gods to be born, and then the mushrooms happened.
So
I
all
don't
these
really.
factions are fighting each other, and then like the first orc just pops out of nowhere, and they're just like, "What is this? Oh no!"
Oh no, there's millions of them.
Jeez, it's that bad too.
Oh, it's that
Or there's-
bad. Yeah, it becomes a major problem that the orcs just start overflowing into the world and just slaughtering everything. It's important to note too that like all of the races are kind of developing still.
Oh, so every race in fantasy is still like in development stage.
So the elves, well, okay, sorry, I should rephrase that. They're developing, but for the most part, the elves, the lizardmen, and the dwarfs are there. Humans are still nomadic.
At this point in time, or
Yeah.
like, or in fantasy in general.
Yeah, they're literally just barbarians wandering the woods. and kind of like
Oh, okay. So
bartering
they haven't
trade.
made any cities or anything. They're just like little tribes.
Yes, one thing, like, I'm gonna love getting around to the Empire, but you need to know that it is literally the Holy Roman Empire and the Germanic people.
Okay.
Like,
So
not,
so it's just like a bunch of like dudes in rags, and then eventually they make the HRE.
yeah, pretty much. Yep.
Oh, okay, nice.
Like, unironically, that is exactly what happens because, yeah, but we'll get to the Empire when we get to the Empire. But for the most part now, they're all nomadic and they're just wandering about and just trying to survive. Because even
Well,
though
like
it's
all
like,
these.
yeah, stuff
Sorry,
hasn't
go
gone to
on.
shit, it still sucks to live here.
Yeah, like they're just wandering around. They're just getting like beat on by the dragon ogres, the lizard dudes, and the dwarves and the elves, and then now orcs.
Pretty much, yeah. So, yeah, the orcs just pop out of the ground and just start killing everything. Actually, except for the elves.
Ah, okay.
For some reason, the elves, they reside on an island called Ulthuan, and it's just this giant, like, it's basically like the UK, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's just this giant island that they reside on, and it's a paradise. They genuinely have like no worries or problems.
Oh, there's like no war down there at all for
There's
them.
there's nothing. Like, maybe occasionally orcs somehow manage to get there, or like there's a chaos insurgent, like just occasionally. But by and large, it's pretty nice.
Oh, so they're vibing out.
They're actually just vibing at the moment. Yeah, like, that's the thing, is that they're still like exploring the world, and they're still exploring the world and like creating trade with other factions and all this stuff. But their home turf is perfectly pleasant.
Oh, so they pretty much got like a nice defensive like sea around them.
Yeah,
Or
yeah,
like,
pretty much. Like,
did they have
I
boats at this time? Like, how do they get around?
oh, they're fully developed. Like, their cultures are
Oh,
fully developed.
so it's just the humans that aren't developed, like everyone else is.
Pretty much. The dwarfs, like, slowly they went from being kind of like the humans, and they started to develop into an industrial age. Again, one thing that's
So they,
important to remember is that, like, I said that these races were created in a certain order. I don't know the gap between when humans were made to when elves was made. It could be 50 years, it could be 5,000, because Warhammer and time is not relevant.
I see what you mean. Okay, so like basically the elves could have been around for a long time before the humans started wandering around.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So they're doing fine, actually.
All
Uh,
right, all right.
so, and with time, the old ones create uh, because they were just like having so much issue with the orcs, they created the ogres and the halflings.
So they went big and then they went super small.
Yet no one knows why. No one knows why they made the halflings, but they're there.
Oh, really?
You know why? I suspect because Games Workshop wanted to sell halfling models.
Yeah, they just throw them in there. They just felt like it.
They exist now. Don't worry about it. That's fine. That's fine. So, anyway, so they exist now. um, and the war with the orcs wages on for a while, and eventually the polar gates. Oh, sorry, I didn't add this in. So those portals that they use to jump between worlds, right?
Yeah.
So they're at the northern poles, actually, of the planet.
Oh, okay. So like North and South Pole or just North Pole?
I think just the northern pole.
All
I could be
right.
mistaken. There could be one in the south, but I know there's one in the north. But basically, the Chaos Gods decided that they were really tired of the old ones basically ruining all their plans.
Oh,
So,
so like these old ones, so is like chaos trying to get into the world? Like, what's the deal with chaos at this point?
yeah, so Chaos is still a thing, but it is held back. It is still controlled because of the old one's powers. Like,
Oh,
it's
I see.
still
So if the
into.
old ones are chilling, then chaos like can't spread into the world. Is that what you're
Yeah,
getting at?
exactly, yes. So they have these ways of keeping them out of the actual material world and in the immaterial, but still, like, some stuff every now and then, like, it seeps out, right?
Mm.
So
Mm-hmm.
chaos still exists. It's still a threat. But eventually, the polar gates actually collapse, and that causes it to basically just become a giant chaos rift.
So these like old portals collapse, and then they turn into like warp rifts things, like kind of like 40K, or like what are we talking about here?
Pretty much, yeah, pretty much. It's basically like the Eye of Terror is in the north,
Oh,
and
that's awful.
it's just spread open and just flooding with chaos energy.
And who lives there? Like who was in the north at the time?
So there were actually some humans that were residing in the northern areas, and
Oh, those poor guys.
yeah, they weren't having a good time. Well, the thing is that like they were already not really a culture, but they saw this thing and they were like, well, if you can't beat them, join them.
Oh, so they're
So
like the first like chaos converts of the humans.
pretty much, yes. Well, there may have been a few here and there, but now like the North is actually pretty much entirely made up of chaos worshippers.
Oh, so it literally just turned into like Mount Doom, like where it just sprouted like the recent Lord of the Rings
Yep,
show.
yep, exactly.
And
It just
and,
came up.
and then they're just like, all right, we're in Mordor now. Might as well join them.
They just turned that key and they were like, well, I guess we're with Sauron now. And then chaos demons just flood out.
I see. And the chaos, like, so how does that work? Like, how does one join chaos? Like, are they just like, yo, like we cool, man? Like how does it work?
So they if you're with chaos, like there are people who, so in the north it is this thing that everyone is just more or less like the majority of people are worshippers of chaos. And a
Okay.
big part of that is just because of the amount of chaos energy that's going through. It's like, well, yeah, I mean, pray to that, you know? Like, I think some people are genuinely just seeking salvation from the horrible aspects of living in the north because it's just a horrible tundra filled with monsters.
Yeah, I know it doesn't sound like fun.
Yeah, it's not a great time. So, like, you can give yourself to the chaos gods, but you will be giving them your soul. Actually, like you give them your service, and your soul is now theirs. So some guys who give themselves to chaos get great deals out of it. Some literally become slaves, and basically, it's like if they die, their soul rots for all eternity.
Oh, so it's like a gamble then. Like you're just gambling. You don't know what you're gonna get.
Yeah, you might get a
Or-
great option. You might get you might be granted the opportunity to become a demon prince, or you might just become some salivating chaos spawn and just a horrible mass of eyeballs and flesh.
Oh, do you like transform right away? Like how does that work?
I mean, it depends which god is your patron god for the most part, because there is chaos
I see.
undivided, but
Okay, but what about like I'm confused with this north, right? Like so like you get the north. Is it like one chaos god that's like coming out of here, or is it just like all of them?
oh, it's all of them.
Oh, okay, I see.
Yeah,
I thought
no,
maybe
the
it was just like
entirety.
one dude, and then these guys are like, oh yeah, we're the worshiper of this dude.
Yeah, no, the chaos gods just sprout all of their evil demons out of this portal, and they just start flowing over the world.
Do they ever fight each other, or are they just like how does that work?
It is actually so in not in this case, but there are cases where it's been recorded that a what was it? I think it was a Nurgle insurrection attacked the human city, a human kingdom, and not long after Zeets showed up, and because Nurgle hates Zeets and Zeets hates Nurgle, they decided to just go at it, and because of that, the human faction actually survived because they were able to fight it off.
Oh, I see. So it kind of like depends, but like at the beginning, they're like, you know what? Let's all be cool. Let's all invade this world together because
Yeah, they were
friendship.
like, everything sucks. The old ones are making life so difficult. Let's just swamp this place.
I see. Okay,
Yeah.
that makes sense.
So, and it
Uh,
is, it is worth noting actually, because now I think I need to go over the different chaos gods. Um,
yeah, that'd be helpful.
yes. So, the first of the chaos gods that we have is Korn, who is the chaos
I'm
god of.
familiar with corn.
Yeah, you know him well. Blood, murder, blood for the blood gods, skull for the skull thrones is the mantra.
Yeah, he's just the war dude.
Yeah, it's a pretty straightforward, because the thing is that the Chaos Gods also represent different philosophies. They don't represent just evil. Oftentimes, like, followers of Chaos and champions of Chaos turn to the Chaos Gods because they have good intent. But they're
That's
tricked
actually kind
into
of
it.
interesting.
Yeah, it's the whole idea of, like, the path to hell is paved through good intent. So, the first one we have is Khorne. And for the most part, like, Khorne represents blood and murder. But, I mean, say you want to have, like, extreme discipline and strength of mind and strength of body. You might give yourself to Khorne for that, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, yeah, that's, like, pretty much, like, if you have a virtuous sort of reason for going to these gods, right? Next up, we have Zeetz. Zeetz represents mischief, lying, deceit. He is the god of magic itself. But also he represents hope for the future and change.
I see. So okay.
Yeah. Next up, we've got.
Do the elves? I feel like the elves would like that god the most.
Well, there is one. I guess I should cover this one next because the god that is most tempting to them is Slanesh.
Oh yeah, the
Mm.
that
God of excess, debauchery,
ah
pleasure and pain, all of this stuff. But Slanesh also represents artists. He represents perfection. In fact, like, he is one of the Chaos Gods who most represents culture.
I see. So is like the elves like I know we're going off on a tangent again, but is the elves kind of similar to the ones in 40K where they're like left alone so long that they just went into like excess and stuff? Is that kind of similar in fantasy too?
I pretty much. The thing is that, like, it's not a thing of, like, the elves birth Slanesh, like in
Okay,
40,000.
so
Slanesh has already existed.
I see. But they're like interested in him. But is it because like they're chilling on their island and no one's doing anything to them? Or does that change later? I'm assuming that changes.
It changes later. Again, I'll cover that one another episode because there's a whole story to that one.
Yeah, okay, yeah, we're still in the intro. I'm just getting so excited to jump forward, you know?
There's again, like, this was the problem with me writing this script was I knew that's like there's gonna be some things I'm gonna have to cover, but I have to cut us off at a certain point because otherwise we'll be here for the next 10 years basically.
Yeah, we're just sitting here like old men. Oh yes, the Nesh.
Nurgle.
Yeah. All right. So okay. So we got Slanesh. Who's up on the next list of the Chaos Chads? I mean gods.
Yes, so the next one, interesting that you said Chads because the last one is Nurgle.
Oh, great. Our favorite disease boy.
Our
right?
favorite disease grandpa, known as the grandfather of pestilence, plague, and decay. He is the oldest of the Chaos Gods and represents decay, rot, pestilence, disease, stagnation. But Nurgle also represents radical acceptance. So if you're radically okay with just being a giant, ball of pestilence, plague, and vile stench, you'll turn yourself over to Nurgle.
Why? I still don't understand how anyone goes with Nurgle. Like, it just does not sound appealing.
Well, it's basically the thing of, hey, do you like just laying around and eating chips and watching TV and just get slowly, like, getting fat and just kind of rotting away? It's like that on
That's a
steroids.
selling point.
That's the selling point. That's the Nurgle selling point. If you don't want to do anything, come to Grandpa.
So is that what like literally like the Nurgle door-to-door salesman, like, he like knocks on your door and he's like, hey, like, you lazy piece of crap, come join us.
Be one with the fat. Oh. I don't know, like, I don't know if that's necessary. Like, that's an aspect of it for sure. Like, there is, every Nurgle demon is pretty, we'll say, thick with rot and pestilence and pus.
No, that's just yeah. Like, see, like, but like, like if I'm a dude considering the Chaos Gods, I want to look at the Chaos spawn to see like what's my like what am I turning into worst case scenario?
Yeah,
You know
because
what I
you look
mean?
at corn and you're like, I just become a muscle daddy.
Yeah, like I'm going corn, dude. I feel like that's probably the worst decision, but I'm going Daddy Corn.
I mean, he's pretty straightforward. You know what you're signing up for if you choose corn.
Yeah, but my most likely die really fast.
Well, that
To
is
be-
also true because it is survival of the fittest. So I mean,
that's what I'm saying. Like I'm the flag bearer, like in the movies. You know what I mean? Like I'm just running in there and then I'm just getting an arrow straight to the head
yeah,
from an
this
orc too.
yeah, it's that scene of the battle at the in Lord of the Rings. What's it called? The siege. And there's that one dude
Oh,
who gets
Helm's
shot.
Deep.
Helm's Deep. That one orc that gets shot by that dude.
Yeah, that's me, bro. Like we're in the line. I'm with my like other naked, shirtless corn men, and we're like pounding our chest, going ooga booga, and then I just get catch an arrow in the head.
Yeah, which I mean that's the thing. Corn also hates he hates artillery, so
Yes, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, see,
he expects you
he's
to
just
go
like
in there full throttle.
no armor, just run forward.
Pretty much, pretty much. I that is actually that's the thing. A lot of corn guys are heavily armored, but yeah, just run forward and hope for the best. Either
I
put
love
up or
it.
shut up. That is corn's
Sounds like my
philosophy.
faction to play. Honestly, I think if I go to fantasy, I might go corn. No strategy involved.
It's a fun faction, and it has some insane abilities now. One of my favorites is Scarbrand, who's just a character that if you beat on him, he gets stronger because he gets angrier.
Sounds like such an annoying faction to fight.
Yeah, like especially it's like you come in and you fight him, and it's like if I can one turn kill him, it's done. But if he has like one hit point left, he's gonna like slaughter like 15 guys in one turn.
All right. So we got the chaos guides, and then what
Yes.
else?
So we have the Chaos Gods, and we've covered them, and that. So that is the one thing actually is that we'll get to the Chaos Gods and kind of like the better aspects of them later. But yeah, so they enter into the world, and also at this point, I don't know if this was the Chaos. Well, okay, part of it was the Chaos Gods. So one thing that's important to note here: humans get utterly shafted with this.
Okay.
Like, if you are in the north, it sucks. If you're in the forest, it sucks double suck.
Why does the forest suck now?
Because with the spawning in of chaos, it also leads to the creation of the beastmen. Because the chaos powers just start warping all of the animals and turning them into abominations, and also a good majority of humans turn to their primitive bestial ways.
So humans turn into I gotta search up what beastmen look like.
Yeah, they're pretty vile. They look like minotaurs, right?
Oh my. Yeah. Okay. They kind of look like the dragon ogres, actually.
I mean they're both chaos monsters, you know. So
Okay. So these are just involuntarily humans that just get corrupted and morphed into these guys.
oh yeah, absolutely, yeah. That's not
Oh, that
voluntary.
sucks. So
It
you're telling me I could be wandering around with my like girlfriend or something, and then bam, she turns into a beast man.
well not now, but that would have happened back then. Yes.
Oh, that would have just imagine that. Come from a long day of hunting, dodging all these other races, and then bam, everyone's a beast man in your little tribal nomad camp.
Well, and that's the other thing too is that the humans at this point they live in the Black Forest, unironically.
Yeah.
It is like no, this forest is like pitch black at all times. No sunlight comes through here. And then all of a
Oh
sudden everyone's
wow.
turning into beastmen and like hunting you.
Dude, that sounds awful.
Yeah, Uncle Joe Bob all of a sudden has turned into a goat scorpion and is trying to like eat your toes.
Oh no, not Uncle Joe.
Yeah, no, Uncle Joe's coming for you, and he's hungry.
Oh man. Dude, oh my gosh, that sounds awful.
Yeah, so humans like I gotta be honest, like I think the humans they might have it worse because they're not an aligned faction.
What do you mean by not aligned?
So so
oh,
they
they're
were,
not with anyone.
yeah, they weren't aligned with anyone, and they weren't civilized. They didn't have structures and places to reside in. So what already sucked to live in got worse.
Yeah, okay, but I thought didn't the toads make the humans? Like why wouldn't they like side with them?
Because to be honest, I don't entirely know. They just functioned as this, like, they may have been too young of a race, to be fair.
Oh, so like maybe they got like created, but then like the toads weren't like really there. They're like a missing father kind of thing, and they're like, oh, we don't even know where we came from, but now there's a black forest and goat monsters.
Oh yes, the old so the only one who know about the old ones are the elves and the lizard men. Every other faction has like forgotten that they existed.
Oh, okay, so I'm literally right. They're like, oh, my long lost fathers have abandoned me.
Yeah, they don't even know that they exist because it's also important to note that like the old ones basically reside on the other side of the world. They just drop the humans in on another continent and we're like, peace, you'll figure it out.
What?
Yeah, living as a human just sucks in this world. It only gets worse.
Okay, go on.
Yeah, exactly. So this is the start of what is referred to as the Great Catastrophe.
Yeah, it sounds like a catastrophe right now.
Oh, it gets worse. Don't worry, because this also leads to a giant moon, a giant green moon called Morsleibs is created. And I might have to go back to check how that comes into being, but I think it's as relevant to the chaos gods coming into the world, and they just manifest this moon. But this also leads to the creation of the Skaven, our favorite rat men.
So those guys come because there's a giant moon in the sky.
Yes, they spawn around the same time as the beastmen do. They come into being.
Oh man.
So no one really knows the origin of the Skaven. Like, if we assume that they're some kind of off-brand species of the beastmen.
So maybe it's like the beast man that got corrupted by the moon turned into rat dudes and then they just multiplied like crazy.
It could be, yeah. It could be that just a normal rat just became corrupted with chaos magic and then just grew to ridiculous heights. We don't know.
How big do these rat guys like what do they look like again? Like can you like I understand it's a rat, but like is there any like special features? Like are they bipedal? Like what are they?
They are, well, they are bipedal. However, like they can, they just scurry around like rats, but they do operate as bipedal. They're around like 5 feet, I think. 5 feet tall rat men. They're not actually like that dangerous on their own. It's that they operate in numbers.
I see.
So
There's
like
just so many of them.
exactly. So like an orc or a beastman, like a single orc or beastman is still scary to fight.
Yeah, but like one rat guy, like he's like, that's no big deal. It's like a little kid.
Exactly. It's the equivalent of there is actually a book that I read where they said it was basically the equivalent of fighting off children, like a swarm of just vile children. Because they're just 5 foot tall rat men that just lunge at you without any strategy, and they're also complete cowards.
So it's kind of like that meme where it's like how many children you think you can take in a fight, like in a boxing ring.
That is exactly the Skaven.
Like how
Yes.
many kindergarteners can you take down by
Until
yourself? Like, you doing 100 or like what you doing?
Exactly, and there's characters of like stories that just the whole rip and tear meme, right, through the Skaven, because it's just like swarm after swarm after swarm, and eventually like they'll kill you just because you become so exhausted.
That's crazy.
So yeah, like millions of these things just spawn into the world. They come into being. And they're not a huge part of the threat right now. The major threat is the actual chaos demons themselves.
Does everyone like kind of band together to fight these chaos demons? Or are they still all like fighting each other?
So for the most part, like none of the factions, like I don't think the dwarfs and the elves were fighting each other. They were just like everyone was basically just settling for the most part.
Oh,
It
I
was
see.
mainly
Okay.
the orcs that were just like the problem.
Yeah, like the orcs are just going around being orcs, kind of vibe.
Exactly. So they were killing themselves. They were killing other orcs. They were killing humans or dwarf. It doesn't matter what they were fighting, right? So long as they were getting a good scrap.
What about like the ogres and those like halflings you mentioned earlier?
So they were basically acting nomadic at the same time.
Okay, so they're kind of like the humans.
Pretty much, yeah. They like basically just operated in like weird huts. They weren't like ogres were already not smart. They were pretty brutish. But you know, they acted as muscle to kill the orcs.
I see. All right.
And halflings, I think they just operated as like their servants. They were happy to cook for the ogres.
Oh, they're actually like together, halflings and ogres.
Well, usually, yeah, it's a thing of like like halflings are known for their cooking, so ogres will usually just have them around just to cook for them.
Oh, what?
Yeah, halflings actually operate just kind of independently. They'll migrate wherever they're welcome.
So they don't have any like little like hobbit towns or anything. They just kind of vibe with whatever race likes their cooking.
Yeah, they kind of have a thing in the Empire later on called the Moot. But for the most part, there's no like giant like continent of the halflings or anything. It's just wherever they're needed.
Yeah, they're not much of soul. Like they're just wandering chefs at this point.
Pretty much, yeah, exactly.
Okay. They're like little Gordon Ramsays going around. You're an idiot sandwich.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the one thing though is that like they're also pretty like mischievous, and they're like, you know, if they can steal from the ogre when he's not looking, they'll do it.
But they give him a good meal after too. So like, is that really stealing at that point?
Yeah, it's basically honor amongst thieves. You know, like the ogres ain't great, the halflings ain't great, but you know, they're not really too angry about it one way or another.
Yeah, his ogre's getting fed well.
Yeah, like every now and then, maybe like an ogre eats his chef, but you know, it happens.
Yeah, that happens. He burnt the macaroni once. He's going down the hatch.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. I mean, I'm not even really joking that much. It's like that's probably only a slight exaggeration, but yeah, like that's pretty much the life that you live as a halfling.
Okay. And if you just suck at cooking, it's over for you.
Yeah, pretty much. You're done. Get out. Have fun with the orcs.
Oh no.
Yeah, no, it doesn't get any better. Because that's the thing. It's like you could act as a chef for an 8-foot tall, a 12-foot tall, like, you know, just total bouncer looking dude. Or you could take your luck with the orcs or Skaven or any nightmare out there.
Honestly, right now, like if I had to choose to live like at this current time, I would say the elves.
Oh,
like,
I think most people would. Yeah, they're doing fine until this point.
Oh, okay. So what happens now?
So now I'm glad that we had that. What a good segue. So each of the Chaos Gods basically go and start fighting different races. So Nurgle sends his great unclean one, the greater demon of Nurgle, Kugath, the Plague Father, to go and fight the dwarves. I mean, for the most part, like Chaos is just kind of swarming around. But like the greater demon generals kind of take the lead in different sections, right? Kairos Fate Weaver, a demon of Zeets, greater demon of Zeets, goes to so the lizardmen reside in Lustria, which is basically Africa.
All right.
And so the Zeetians go to Lustria and start fighting off the lizardmen, who at the time the lizardmen, it's worth pointing out, they're probably the most dominant race in the world.
Yeah, I would assume so. They were like the first ones there. They killed most of the dragon ogres. Like they're probably chilling, right?
They are actually, there's a vast majority of them. Or there's a vast number of them. Yeah, they're the majority race in the world at this point in time. And every other race was kind of like made by the old ones, so they didn't have an issue with them.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. It was just the races that didn't and weren't really compliant that they were just kind of genocided.
They're like the little like cleanup crew of the races.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, there's no other way to phrase it.
Oh man,
they're good at what they do, but this is Warhammer. They ain't, you know, they're. You could say that they're picking daisies, but it'd be a metaphor. So, basically, Zeetz goes to Lustria to fight the lizardmen, and the lizardmen uh, do their absolute damnedest to fight back the insurgents of chaos, but just with time, like, they just slowly start getting beat back and just getting slaughtered because the northern gate just keeps spewing chaos energy.
Yeah, so they gotta like close that gate or something, or they're just toast.
Pretty much, and they really don't like the old ones and the lizard men, so they're heading to their home turf to deal with them ASAP.
Oh, okay, so they're like public enemy number one for like the Chaos Gods.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Like the lizard men, like they exist to fight chaos. That is literally what they're made for.
All right.
Which is actually one reason that they're incorruptible.
Oh, so they actually will never fall to chaos then, like in
No,
terms of
because
that way.
they basically operate as like sentinel. Like I say, sentinel beings, but like literal sentinels. They don't really have like ambitions or anything. They just serve whatever cause they're needed for.
Oh, okay, that's kind of interesting. So yeah, so basically they're like, great toads. What
Yes,
shall we do
exactly.
today?
My great toad prophet, show me your ways and what you desire. Like that's all they care about.
All right.
So they slowly start just getting back by the Zechian guys. Nurgle starts attacking the dwarfs, and that's not looking too hot. Like it just sucks all around. And over on the island of Ulthuan, this is where Slanesh finally makes makes their mark on Ulthuan. And it's worth pointing out to remind you, the elves are not used to war at this point.
Oh, so that's not good.
No, they have been very comfortable on their island for the past while, and like Slanesh starts spewing onto their island, and they start just getting mauled. It ain't a fun time. Which is
Oh
just so
no.
so funny to me that like of course the elves are the only race that had a good time, and then when a crisis came, they just get just slaughtered.
Like do a lot like how like does their population die by a lot at this point or like
Well, it's just a total like blitzkrieg on them that they didn't see coming, right?
yeah.
Like because Slanesh, it's worth pointing out, is like they're fast. On the tabletop, they're extremely fast, and so when they show up, they just swamp the beaches and just start killing everything in sight. Um, but fortunately, a big dick Giga Chad by the name of Eltharion, I believe it
Mm-hmm.
is who is the first Phoenix King of the Chaos. Of the Chaos of the Elves, of the High
Yep.
Elves. So he is the first, like, basically Emperor of Ulthuan, and this dude is just such a badass.
All
He
right. So
just
so they
starts
just
slaughtering the demons left and right, and basically just rouses people up. He actually was exploring the outer world, so he was in conflict. He was fighting orcs and dragon ogres and all this stuff, and somehow came back unscathed.
so basically he went on was like fighting thing comes back and then his island his home is just full of Slaneshi demons.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, yeah.
And then he's like, "All right, boys,
All right, time to
time to
do
do
what
some
we
work
do
again."
best.
All right.
It's like, you know what we were doing on the other island? Well, time to rinse and repeat. So
And
they
how
go
successful
and
is he?
yeah, yeah. So they start fighting back, and there is another character, a friend of his, by the name of Calidor Dragon Tamer, who's a major, powerful mage at this point, right?
Was this guy on the island, or was he like kind of going around with him?
I don't know. I think he was just on the island at this point. Because it is worth pointing out that even though the elves aren't like, they weren't bred for war, they're not like horribly. It wasn't like they'd never seen a sharp object. They still understood like how to fight, but they never dealt with a massive incursion like this.
Yeah.
So,
No, it makes sense why they would have a rough time.
yeah, exactly, right? So they have a horrible time, but thankfully Anarian comes back, starts fighting off the demons, and basically out of just desperation for his people, there is because they have their own gods, and I don't exactly know. From the best of my understanding, it seems like becoming a god in Warhammer is kind of like leveling up to level 20 in D&D.
Okay.
It just seems like if you're strong enough, if you have enough big dick energy, you just ascend to godhood. So
So like any mortal can just ascend to godhood at one point,
yeah, exactly.
theoretically.
But somehow the gods can also die. It's not common though.
Okay. So they can be killed though.
Yes, yeah. So the elves have their own gods that they worship, and one of these gods is Anarian, who I think is basically like the equivalent of just like the big god, right?
Like the god
Yeah,
of
like
the elves.
the god of the Azure, of the High Elf's official name is the Azure. So this is like the big god, and he has this thing called the Flame of Assyrian. It is this just giant bonfire in the sacred temple, and Anarian, for some reason, he goes and prays to this flame, and then he basically offers himself to his god, and he just walks into it. And this is when he actually emerges as the Phoenix King. This is when he's actually earns the title, and he also just becomes incredibly powerful.
Okay, so he like offered himself to be like this god's champion pretty much, and the god's like, yeah, you got a deal.
He's like, yeah, you'll do. Yep. And yeah, so basically I go to the elves because they become a major asset to the fight at this point. They're a major part of the battle. So the elves are fighting with Celeste. Nurgle is attacking the dwarfs, and meanwhile in Lustria with the lizardmen, they actually start getting just totally decimated. And eventually it basically comes to the capital city, the big city, which I think is sieged for some ludicrous time of like 500 years. I could be mistaken, but it's something around those lines. So
500-year siege.
a 500-year siege on this city alone. Because it is just like the capital of the lizardmen, right? It is also worth pointing out that at this point, the old ones basically see everything that's going on, and they dip.
Oh, they left.
They straight up leave. They go back up to space, and they leave everyone's ass.
What?
Because they're like, it looks like actual conflict and actual problem solving. Here's a way to deal with it, and they just dip.
It's okay. Why don't they use their like magical powers or something to like kind of subdue the chaos? Like I'm so confused.
They probably were, but it was just like not enough. Because at this point,
Okay, so they're like, screw it, I don't want to die. Let me go back up to another space hole.
Yeah, exactly. At this point, the full swarm of chaos is coming through, and they literally just leave, and they leave behind some plaques for the lizardmen to figure out.
Okay, do they ever find these plaques?
They are littered in the temple cities that the lizardmen have, and they're constantly trying to decipher their meanings. That is like their entire existence.
Oh, so right now they're just trying to figure out what they left for them.
Exactly, yes.
While also fighting chaos. That's like present day.
Exactly. They're holy scripture while they fight chaos and Skaven. And whatever other nightmares.
Alright, so these guys dip. They're like, peace out, everyone. Then what happens?
Well, at this point, the final city, the capital city of Itza, is finally, like, the demons get through the main gates, and they start just slaughtering everything in sight. And one of those frogmen, the Slan, so it's worth pointing out, these guys have insane magical powers.
Mm-hmm.
But the Slan is basically residing on the top of the temple city, just using his spells and just trying to fight off as many demons as possible until I think it's something like 8 bloodthirsters, which are the big demon guys of Khorne, just go forward and just jump up on the temple and are like, hey, how's it going? And tear him to shreds.
Oh, what a way to go.
But his will, his magical will, because he was the first spawn Slan. He was of the first generation. So this guy is ancient.
Yeah, he's been around like forever.
Exactly. Like basically since the dawn of like the polar ice caps melting, right?
Like he met the Toad guys.
Yeah, exactly. He was there. He was tutored under them. It's
Okay.
basically like Yoda's teacher, right?
All right.
So, he had such a strong will and so much might, so much magical prowess that he refused to die. His
All
soul
right.
would not leave his body after he was basically torn to ribbons. And somehow he managed to manifest enough magical energy while he is basically a specter to cause a nuclear-sized magic spell. And this
All right.
basically decimates chaos off of Lustria. Because it says that if you were on the island of Ulthuan across the world, it looked like a small sun was being born.
So he just made a giant nuke. He like nuked himself.
Yeah,
pretty
he made
much.
he made an anti-chaos nuke.
But it only affected chaos.
Exactly. Yep.
Oh, okay.
And it
That's kind of
basically
cool.
it gave them the ability to like just fight back at last, right? Like to basically, not get overrun completely.
It's kind of badass. I'm not gonna lie. Look at this Toad go.
Yeah, he's still he's actually still alive, and he has a model right now. A character called Lord Croak.
He's still alive. So how did he like sew his body back together? Like what happened?
So like I said, you should look up the mini because
Yeah,
basically
wait. Let me see. What's he called?
Lord Croak,
Lord Rogue.
Kroak.
Yeah, I see it.
Yeah, and then you can see what they did.
Hold up. I'm looking now. Okay. Oh, he's just like in bandages and stuff. It looks like
Yeah,
almost.
he's literally a mummy.
Yeah.
And he just resides that way. He somehow still manages to exist. Because he just refuses to die.
This guy's just too pissed off to die. I love it.
He's too angry to die, which feels appropriate because he just nuked like 8 bloodthirsters and an entire chaos insurgents.
You ever play like Undertale? You know that game?
I know it, but I've never played it.
Yeah, there's like this thing with determination in there. This man is just filled with it.
Oh, yeah, this guy is the epitome of too angry to die, refuses to die.
I like it. It looks pretty cool.
I mean, he's basically Guts Toad,
It's guts, dude.
It's the best way I can describe him. But yeah, so that pretty much saves the Lizard Man, and they won't really play a major factor at this point because I just need to introduce this character of Lord Croak. But for the most part, the Lizardmen are out of the battle at this point and are just fighting back chaos still.
Okay, so Lord Croak nukes everyone, and then like lizard men start gaining ground again or something.
Yep, pretty much.
Okay. Does Lord Croak still fight, or is he like he's just like I did my thing, you guys got it from here, kind of vibe?
I think he's not really like able to fight. I think he's so tired that he's able to just keep his like consciousness intact, and then later on they make his mummified body for him to manifest into.
Oh, I see. Okay, that makes
They literally
sense.
pick him back up from the pieces and rebuild into like a construct.
And I'm assuming he's like some like holy god almost to like the lizard people at this point.
Yeah, he's basically he's the closest thing to an old one, right? Like at this point.
Okay.
But he's just too like he's just a grumpy old frog dude.
All right.
So I'm going to hop back over to the elves actually, and the elves at this point are fighting off Slanesh, fighting off the Chaos Insurgents. Uh, and eventually, chaos just starts plowing in and just killing everyone with so much vigor. And they're led by a greater demon by the name of Nakari. And Nakari is pretty much like the main enemy of the High Elves, as far as like Slaanesh is concerned.
Okay, Nakari. Hold up, I'm gonna search him up. How
Yeah,
do you
go
spell
for
that?
it. This is, yeah, I mean, you can look up Slaanesh demons, you're gonna get some weirder photos, I will say.
Nakari Slanet. Yeah, I'm kind of scared.
I mean, it's fine, he's got a model, but, you
Wait,
know,
how do you spell him?
uh,
Nakari.
Nkari.
Nkari. I see. Okay, Nakari Warhammer. Here we go.
Yeah.
See what he looks like. I'm kind of nervous for this. Oh, he does look that. He just kind of looks like a. He's got like four arms kind of vibe.
Yeah, just four arms. He's got that like androgynous vibe that
Yeah,
Slaanesh
like, you
demons
don't know what
have.
his gender is. He or
Exactly. Yeah.
she. It's like half. Looks like half a dude, half a girl.
Pretty much, which is just a thing with Slaanesh. I'm not gonna even. Yeah, we'll leave it at that. But anyways, so that is leading. Nakari is leading the insurgents of Slaanesh and Chaos, and at some point, Nakari actually kills the wife of Anarian, the Phoenix King guy.
Oh, so okay, so he kills her.
Yeah, and this leads Anarian into just a total bloody rage, right? And eventually he goes to. So it's worth mentioning that he has a dragon as his mount. I forget the dragon's name. Yeah, anyways, it's there. But he takes his dragon and he goes to what is called the Blighted Isle, I believe, where there is another Chaos God's temple. Or, sorry, another Elven God temple.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the temple of the god Cain, who is the god of murder.
All right.
Which would sound bad, but this is actually quite a saving grace for them because he takes the sword of Cain from its altar, and at this point is just granted insane strength by the power of Cain and Cain's sword. I think it has a. I could be mistaken. I just want to have a look at the name real quick. Sword of Cain. Oh, it is literally just called the Sword of Cain. Anyways, but this thing grants him insane powers. He starts slaughtering fools left and right. However, it does cause him to slowly go insane. It's kind of like the Venom symbiote.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it does make him quite a bit more violent, just in personality, right? So even when he's off the battlefield, he's just an angry, bloodthirsty dude.
Yeah, he's just a pissed off person.
Exactly. So at this point, that dude I told you about earlier, Kalidor Dragon Tamer, right? The friend of Anarian. So he was an insane mage, and he realized, like, yo, this sucks. We're not winning this, even with all of this going on. Even with the Sword of Cain and the blessings of Anarian, there's just too much bullshit. So he actually goes to the dwarves.
Oh.
And he strikes an alliance up with the dwarves. And at the time, the dwarves have their ancestral gods, who are basically like these old dwarfs who... Well, they were the ancestor gods. They were just super powerful dwarf people, and they were kind of like the It was their own pantheon of like three main gods. And one of these gods was Grimnir, who was like the god of battle, right? And with everything going on, with the invasion of Nurgle coming in, he eventually shaves his head into a mohawk. And this is the first Slayer's Oath that was ever taken, which will later on become a cult. We'll cover that in another episode. But he decides that he needs to take a more head-on approach. And he's like, you know what? There's only one way to deal with this. And he jumps into a Chaos Rift to fight off the demons.
Wait, who does this? Sorry.
Grimnir. That dude who shaved his head.
Okay, so... And this guy's just some... Dude, like...
He's just a dwarf.
Okay.
But mind you,
What
it
is
is like
who
the
is this?
end.
I gotta search this guy up. Grim. How do you spell this man's name?
Gri Mnir, I think.
Is he like sit? Like I'm assuming that this guy's like pivotal.
Well, he's basically like the dwarven god of war.
Oh, he turns into a god.
Yes, this is one of the ancestor gods.
Okay, so like after this guy does stuff, like he eventually turns into a god.
Yes, exactly.
Oh, okay.
So actually jumps into the Chaos Rift to fight the demons off hand to hand in
Just
their own
him?
home territory.
Just him.
Just him.
Yo, this guy's a beast.
Yeah, it's kind of insane. I don't know how he manages this. Although I think he had the intent of leaving at some point, to be honest.
All right.
So Calidor, having struck a deal with the dwarfs, sails back and to Ulthuan and realizes, oh, I have a solution to this to prevent the fluctuating chaos magic from entering into the world. It ain't great though. And he kind of saw how Anarian was holding up, and at this point, he's just screaming his head off, just slaughtering everything in sight, and just kind of losing his mind. He goes, we don't really have any other option. So his solution...
Like he's like, dude, at this point, anything's better than this.
yeah, nothing can, if I don't do this, we're all dead. So I gotta just take what I can get. So his solution was that he would take himself and his best mages, and they would commence a ritual that would basically create a giant vortex of magic, a controlled magic. And this would basically it would control the chaos flow, right? Like, it would prevent it from flowing in at the rate that it is.
Okay, so they're trying to put like some magical barrier on this thing.
Well, they basically
This portal.
They go to the center of Ulthuan onto this giant, what do I even call this thing? Just this giant spot, right? Like this giant just disc that they can commence this ritual in. And Anarian is like, all right, well, I'm going to do my best because the demons see this and they know it ain't great. So Anarian is basically like, well, I guess this is the last stand. And he has to just fight off swaths of demons left and right to save his boy, his best bud, and all of his lackeys, or like his underlings, right? And, some time passes, and eventually they succeed with this spell, and they create the Great Vortex, which to this day is like the main thing keeping chaos out of the human realm, out of the realm of mortals.
Oh, so it's still there.
It's still there, yeah. Because the elves who cast it are stuck in time.
Huh?
So they are literally like eternally casting this spell and just stuck in time casting this for centuries.
What happens if one of them dies?
It's probably gonna break. But they're elves, right? They just live forever.
Oh, so I see what you mean. So they basically like all they're doing is just casting this spell.
Yep, for the rest of their existence.
Oh, that's brutal.
It's not a great life, but again, it was like, well, if I don't do this, we're all gonna die.
Well, what happens like if one of them just dies from old age? Does someone take the spot or something?
I don't know. I think they're just literally like they're stuck in a stagnant like time zone, basically.
Oh, I see. Like maybe they cast like another spell or something.
Yeah, I think it's just basically like with the fluctuation of magic around them, it's like they're just not aging. Because mind you, this is enough magic that it stopped chaos from flowing in.
Yeah, so it's like pretty intense magic.
Yeah, they're basically in just like a time portal.
All right. That's pretty nutty, I'm not gonna lie.
It's a lot, yeah. So that's their resolution actually, and that stops everything. That stops the great catastrophe afterwards. But it is worth pointing out. Remember how I brought up that Grimnir jumped in?
Oh, did he get stuck?
So because they created this thing, he is stuck in the realm of chaos.
Is he still fighting demons there though?
he does die, but he dies like in the age of Sigmar, so he like survives for centuries, just fighting demons.
Yo, what a legend.
This dude, like I said, man, like this, the ancient heroes of each race, they're pretty Chad. I don't really have any other way to describe them.
Yeah, like they're just like the best of the best. Has
Oh
like
yeah,
anyone
it's
even
like
come close to these people's achievements since? Like, is there other like really notable people too?
I maybe. I mean, there is one. Okay, so there's one character. I'll have to cover this in another lizard when we get to the lizard man. But there's one character who is a Saurus warrior who was the last survivor of his city. So when
Okay,
the
that
city
sounds
like
pretty, that
fell,
sounds
he
pretty
kept
beast.
fighting.
That sounds pretty cool.
It's pretty nutty. Yeah, he was the last survivor of this city and just became a crazy general. Um,
That sounds pretty cool.
yeah, so each faction kind of has their like we'll get the humans later. They have their heroes and all this, but
So what is happening to the humans, Ashley? Now that you brought them up,
I think for the most part they are literally just hiding and just like
running.
trying their hardest to just not get totally decimated off the map.
Oh man, Ooga Booga times with the humans must suck.
Oh, it was not fun. Again, you're just a primitive like yeah, you're a caveman. You're just primitives just like fighting for survival.
Oh man.
It ain't fun. So, I think that is pretty much all I have to cover because that is basically the beginning of the new age. Like the old ones have left. The great catastrophe has occurred. Most of the ancient heroes are now dead. Because mind you, I didn't. Sorry, I forgot to mention this. So Anarion, the Phoenix King, right? The
Yeah, I was just
Chad,
gonna say, like, what happened to that guy?
he unfortunately does succumb to his wounds, but he gets on his dragon, which I believe I remember called Indragnir. He gets on his dragon, flies back to the Blighted Isles, and returns the Sword of Cain
That's
like,
pretty sick.
as his dying, his last action, right? Because he used it. He realized its power, but it did mess him up, and he knew it. And everyone else knows better. Like on Ulthuan, they're like, "You don't touch that."
Oh, so no one touches this sword afterwards.
Maybe every now and then, like someone manages to grab it because they just lose their mind. But like even the most insane, like dark elf, which we'll get to later, like they know better.
Oh, I see what you mean. Okay, so like it was like literally like, all right, we saw what this does to someone. Let's not touch. Let's leave that alone.
Let's
Unless
just
we're in
not.
like chaos, death again.
Well, again, when you pick up the sword of the god of bloody murder, I mean, that's a pretty obvious statement that it isn't going to be a fun time for you.
Yeah, I
So,
bet. Okay, so then he just dies like peacefully, like like of old age to his wounds, like.
yeah, he just passes away on the island along with his dragon, and just succumbs to his wounds, unfortunately. But yeah, just dies with such Giga Chad energy.
No, that guy's pretty cool. So his best friend though is technically still alive.
Yeah, I think he is technically still alive, just eternally casting that vortex.
Oh man, I feel like did they like build like a temple around these guys or something, and they're just like protecting them at all costs?
Yeah, there is like a temple that is just like no one gets through here. We have like the most elite guard protecting this. No one's coming through. But also, I don't think anyone would be dumb enough to try. It's
Well,
like,
maybe like
why
some like
would you?
chaos worshiper, maybe some chaos worshiper
Oh,
or something.
yeah, that's fair. Yeah, Chaos Worshippers absolutely would. But for the most part, like, Ulthuan, manages to keep, for the most part, safe of chaos, I believe.
So then, what happens? Actually, I guess you'll get into it later on in other episodes. But I was gonna ask what is happening to chaos then after that portal gets made.
Well, once that portal gets made, they get sucked back into the realm of chaos. All of the demons dissipate. And a lot of the humans at this point, I want to point out, because of up north, right? That was where they were all coming from. They do, a lot of them. This is like when Norska the culture that mostly represents chaos of the human faction, really develops. Like this becomes a thing. This becomes the primary force in the North.
Oh, so like it's just like so they like have a bunch of chaos worshippers up there now.
Yeah, so that's the thing is that even though like life sucked to be in the Black Forest, for the most part it was like survival amongst unity because otherwise I'm gonna get slaughtered by beastmen, right?
Mm-hmm.
But Norska is more than happy to just murder and just pillage survival of the fittest, their closest neighbor or friend. It is a lawless area up there, and they revel in it.
So they like it.
Oh, they like it. Yeah, they like it a lot. They've come to love it. It's become their culture. For the
Oh
most part,
wow.
like that culture later on, like in the north, they become like the Vikings of Warhammer.
Okay. That makes sense, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, that's pretty much that is the Great Catastrophe, and at this point, all the factions kind of try to recreate what they lost, and there is sort of a moment of peace. Uh, this is a big turning point, though, for pretty much every race, because some races fall and some rise to power. Like some who were the most powerful become decimated, and some who were very powerful, or some who were pretty much, the nomads, finally form culture and empires.
So I'm guessing that's where like the humans and stuff gain strength. And I'm guessing the lizard men and the elves kind of took a big hit.
Pretty much. Well, the lizardmen, fortunately, have they will take hits, but nothing as substantial as what the other factions are about to face. I will put it that way.
Really? And that will be next episode? We'll talk
I
about that or
I think next episode I will have to cover. Well, I'll have to decide what we want to cover. But yeah, we'll definitely be covering an aspect of that because each race has probably its own podcast worth of just bad stuff happening.
I mean it is Warhammer.
It is
No, dude,
Warhammer.
that's a great intro episode. Now I see where everything started from with the
Yeah,
great alien space toads.
yeah, and like I said, right, like we got Aztec floating space pyramids. We got Scientology of aliens coming down and changing the the Earth's axis. We got the ancestor gods, all this stuff. It all messes, and I love it.
Wow, that was awesome. I feel very educated. I like it.
Well, with that said, I should ask Mr. Cabs, do you have any questions in regards to what we've covered today?
Ah, man, I think you answered everything. My mind has been expanded in Warhammer Fantasy.
Good. Are you excited for the next episode? And is there anything you hope to cover soon?
You know which faction I want to cover.
All right,
You know which
we'll,
faction I
we'll,
want
we'll
to
get to
cover.
the orcs eventually. They're not significant enough right now. They
No,
will.
I know.
I,
No,
I'm going
I
to be
actually,
honest. They never become unbelievably significant because they just remain a constant threat and a nuisance. But we have some characters who I absolutely need to cover, like Big Dick Grimgore himself. I
I
mean,
can't wait.
yeah, I can't wait either, dude. Probably one of my favorite characters. Period.
No,
Grimgore
dude,
Ironhide.
I'm excited to hear more about. I'm kind of like curious. I want to know what happens to the elves and how the humans kind of form the empire. I feel like
All
that will
right,
be very fun to explore.
that will probably be next episode. Well, in that case, I guess I should lead us off, or would you care to?
Oh, please lead the way.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for listening. To those who are listening, and I hope that this was educational for you if you don't know anything about Warhammer, and I hope you had fun if you do know the lore and just wanted to tune in just to hear kind of my take on it and to educate Mr. Cabs here on the entirety of it. If you do have any questions or want me to cover any subjects in the future, please do let me know, and we will happily cover it. because I enjoy talking about this. I like to think that Mr. Cabs gets enough joy out of just the insanity of it.
Dude, Warhammer lore is so insane. It's so interesting. I love it so much.
And yeah, until then, we will see you all next time. Thank you and take care.
Peace out, everyone.